Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I am here talking with Alex. We're streaming on Alex's channel as well. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone? And then I guess I'll introduce myself to everyone who will be watching from your channel.
Sure. My name is Alex. I came across your channel and your X profile here recently, and liked what you had to say. Reached out, thought we could do a little collab. So this is literally the first time we're talking. So hopefully we don't disagree too much. Maybe after this we'll hate each other. I'll never talk to you again. I'll block you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no. And I hopefully we'll have a cool conversation.
Yeah, we literally talked for 2 minutes before we went live, so that's everything. So I guess I'll introduce myself, everyone on Alex's channel. I go by New Crusade, and most of my stuff, I did a lot of Catholic stuff in the beginning, and I'm kind of shifting more towards just trying to do explicitly political stuff. Video essay stuff. I'm fine doing live discussions and like this, but I'm trying to kind of move more towards more scripted stuff and kind of just sprinkle this in for pertinent events like what we're talking about today, which is the release of the Epstein Files, which obviously has been a really, really big deal for a lot of different people for years. And, up until recently, especially from the mainstream left wing, this was basically just a fully shunned talking point. And it was like if you brought up Epstein, you were a QAnon, Pizzagate conspiracy theorist, you could just be fully kind of ignored. And now that it's convenient because Trump is mentioned, what is it, something like 40,000 times in the Epstein files, it is now a mainstream left-wing talking point to, talk about Epstein.
So true.
Yeah, so let's see here. We have a couple notes. So it says officially over 3.5 million files dropped. Not over 6 million. So far, there's no expected prosecutions. I'm just reading off some notes Alex gave me. One thing that's interesting is I know in the UK there are some legal repercussions that are kind of happening. I think it's Peter Mandelson, who was close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He's a lord and a big deal in the Labour Party over in the UK. In some of these files that were released, for example, he was literally caught like giving out, I don't know if they're technically state secrets or if they're just secrets that also belong to the state. Like, I don't know if how that term applies, but so there's some stuff there. I don't know if he's going to see prosecution, but it's looking like this is going to end up destroying Keir Starmer's entire government in the UK. So there's definitely some real world repercussions. And what's really going to happen to Trump is not quite apparent yet. But we can definitely say that it is furthering the split amongst the right, and it is now causing kind of a new faction on the left. So I'm curious, what do you think about that, Alex?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've kind of focused less on a lot of the particulars and more on just kind of what to make of the whole situation. We talked a little bit 2 minutes, like you said before this, and I do think it's interesting that kind of on the right wing you are seeing people kind of turning into what maybe QAnon used to be, just like the craziest conspiracy possible about everything, like taking one document or one accusation and turning it into to just something bigger than it is. But I think the reasonable or the thing that we need to focus on is the blackmail angle. Like clearly, like our elites are controlled via blackmail. I think that's like I don't. It'd be hard to argue against that at this point. But it seems like people are getting so kind of hammered in on those particulars that they just, it seems to almost be intentionally distracting from the fact that we don't really know who. Well, I mean, we kind of know, but we don't really know who's running the government.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's interesting. I think one thing worth pointing out for anyone who's more on the beginner side, I guess, is that when we say like elite, like it's not in the Marxist sense where it's like everyone in charge is like on some big team to oppress everyone. Like there's clearly factions that are existing in here. One conversation I was listening to that was pertinent to this was talking about how there's a lot of left-wing people getting mad about Noam Chomsky was had a lot of connections with Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, Donald Trump did. Steve Bannon was talking to Jeffrey Epstein on the right. You have a lot of mainstream kind of apolitical people like these. Peter Attia, that doctor, was involved with
Richard Dawkins as well.
Richard Dawkins. You see people like, what's that big what is it called? The wellness company, that big health company that
Mm,
the guy who runs that was on Joe Rogan. And so there's this kind of new tech, or the little tech, the kind of that angle to it too, the transhumanist angle. Like he was literally just involved everywhere. And, so that's a very obvious thing. And I think it brings up an interesting idea that, I mean, it makes them seem unified, but obviously they're not because they're using it, they're weaponizing it against each other. So that's an interesting kind of an interesting angle for all of this.
yeah. Yeah. It seems like kind of from what I've kind of gathered is a lot of the most kind of degenerate little parts of the culture, the things that the different areas of the culture that want to push the most, not even always the most blatant, but just the most potent like anti-Christian messages tend to have some sort of connection here. Like we said, Richard Dawkins, um, but I'm even like I was shocked. I mean, we've known about Stephen Hawking for a long time, but like it is just wild how many of the people who are explicitly denying Christ or even doing so in like this kind of tangential angle, like you said, like the Joe Rogan type people. These people, like they always want to offer some alternative to Christ, like whether it's this kind of weird mystical spiritual angle or just an outright atheism or like some scientism or something like that. Like you really see that this was an anti-Christic operation that was going on. And obviously that plays out in their behavior, but it seems to play out in kind of the messaging that the people involved were pushing from all the different angles they pushed it. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and it's interesting. Like I had talked to you about it, and I thought that some of the argumentation, like the idea that this is like a Satanist operation or something, that Ian Carroll and Roseanne Barr were talking about that. I think that's kind of dumb and not accurate,
Right.
except for in the sense that literally everyone opposed to Christ is naturally kind of aligned with Satan in a practical sense, but
Right.
not in like drinking baby's blood or stealing Eucharistic hosts kind of
That's
Satanist
what I've
way,
gotten here.
obviously.
Baby's
Yeah,
blood.
exactly, right. And so I thought that was worth mentioning, that that's not really what's being meant, but it is interesting that you do see it really does cover a lot of these. Seemingly, there's a lot of like secular Judaism, a lot of actual religious Judaism involved. There's a lot of the, like you said, a lot of the atheists or these transhumanists. There's the emails of Elon Musk like sucking up, and it's like the cool kid who doesn't get invited to any parties, or the lame kid who doesn't get invited to any parties, like, oh man, like I'd really like to go to the party, I could blow off some steam, man, can you invite me to a party, man? And so it's
So
like a
weird.
lot of that kind of stuff, right? So that's very interesting. And then you do see a lot of these people who kind of appear out of nowhere, the people who go on everyone's podcast, all of these type of people, a lot of these people were also connected.
Right. These people that
And
pop up out of nowhere.
yeah. Or even the people where they might like, I guess a lot of it's these questionable people, like that Dr. Peter T is a good example, where he gets a lot of flack from this way or that way, this like biohacking community, these type of people. I think it was Brian Johnson was involved there too, wasn't he?
Oh, I'm so not surprised. I can't stand that
Yeah,
guy.
I'm not don't quote me on it, but I think all these type of people, and so it's like there's this whole world, but all these people are, I guess the whole PayPal mafia, Brian Johnson, Elon, Peter Thiel, they're all from they all have the same come up story, right? So
Hmm.
they're all connected in this sphere. And obviously, Jeffrey Epstein, I kind of think this is where we can get into maybe more of a diagnosis, is obviously he had a direct connection through I guess his girlfriend or his partner or whatever you want to call her, Ghislaine Maxwell or Ghislaine Maxwell, through her father, Robert Maxwell, who was a, what was it, MI5 agent or whatever it is, and then also working for supposedly a double agent for Mossad as well. When it got
Hmm.
married on or buried on the Mount of Olives when he died in Israel, and got a state funeral in Israel. And so there's all those connections too, which are interesting and worth talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, did you hear? I did not confirm this, but I heard that Ghislaine Maxwell was actually like a Reddit mod on like atheist
Mhm.
subreddits. Did you hear about this? So
Yeah,
there's
I
like
saw.
this seems to be there's like this top down like kind of Reddit atheism that's like being pushed, which is, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. It's Reddit, but that is wild to just see someone like Ghislaine Maxwell spending her time as an as an atheist subreddit mod.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's weird. And then they were saying there was some poll board, some between like the 4chan poll board, the politics board, and Epstein. There's supposed to be some type of connections there too. I didn't. I really should have screenshotted and stuff, but I didn't. I didn't do that. Yeah, but that's really weird. And then I guess it's kind of funny seeing from a practical perspective, like the factionalism in the elite. You see that all of these people, and one of the reasons why you can really tell there is this Israel connection is that all of these warring tribes within the elite who are happy to like now take Epstein and weaponize it against each other are all largely Zionist. Mandelson in labor is a Zionist. A lot of these different, obviously, literally like the Jews that Epstein was working with were
right. I mean,
largely
even
Zionist.
Netanyahu trying to say, "Oh, it's not Israel. It's just Ehud Barak and the
Yeah,
leftists." It's
yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly.
that's still Israel, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an interesting kind of line there too. I'm not. I saw someone talk about that. It was almost, I feel like almost like it was Nick Fuentes or something like that who was basically saying that it was kind of a line by them to kind of force Ehud Barak into being this falling on the sword, basically to kind of clear Epstein connections from them. But he has, I mean, he has direct state connections. He doesn't need. He could have never met with any of the direct leaders of the Israeli government, like personally in that intimate way, and it still would have been direct connect. There still would have been direct connections, you know.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that's interesting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the big takeaway is don't engage in degenerate behavior and you won't be blackmailed.
Yeah.
That's for one. But
Yeah.
I don't know. When do you think these people, I mean, part of me is like, do they really even need this whole operation to blackmail people? Like at this point with the way that the CIA works, and so, like, can't they just like plant something on someone's computer if they really don't play ball? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it really have to be this? That's kind of what shocks me about the whole thing. There seems to be like, there doesn't seem to maybe there was a need for it 20 years ago, right? But I feel like you don't need an Epstein operation anymore to kind of get the same job done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
Like, with
fair.
the
I mean,
way
a
that
lot of
where
the
the technology is now.
yeah, a lot of the connections are from back then, I think, which kind of lends, and maybe he's kind of the remnant of the old guard, you know, like the introduction into the online, because you can definitely see the way all these geezers are using email, like it's like text messages, like keeping up personally. Oh,
Right.
you know, is Steve Bannon talking to Epstein? Oh, you want to come to dinner with me? Epstein says. Bannon says, no, I'm not free. It's Sunday. And he says, what's on Sunday? And he says, the Super Bowl. And he says, okay, Goyim. And he responds. And and it's like who emails each other like that, you know? It's
That's
like,
so
dude, you
crazy.
can
Yeah.
tell all these people are ancient. And it's like, so I think maybe that's why. And then I mean, I think there probably is in a way the fact like one guy like that can probably exert direct relational control over so many more people than you could through like implanting. Like if you plant something on someone's computer, that's like to really quickly get someone out and kind of handle it, you know.
Sure.
But you don't have to ever result to that if you can kind of do the kind of stuff he was doing, where, for example, in the British government, he had people sending him, oh, there's this company, there's news coming out about this company, or this it was like we're bailing out this company or something, and giving someone pertinent market information 6 years before or 6 hours before it's being divulged to, you know, to the press and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of direct kind of advantages that one person can have there as well. But even, I mean, I don't know, even in the most minimalist view of it, I heard from, I'm curious what you think. So Richard Hanania, who is I was telling you, is kind of like an Epstein minimalist, which is seemingly the accusation people were making towards Nick Fuentes recently, because there seems to be the release of these files has really given kind of the schizos and the MAGA schizos and a lot of the evangelical type of people a lot of fuel to kind of burn.
Astral projection.
What'd you say?
Astral projection.
Yeah. And so from Richard Hanania, he was basically just saying, from what I can tell, corroborated, the only thing that's there is basically a guy engaging with women who are like, able to consent in one country and not able to, consent in the next country. And he's
Mm,
kind of like, okay, well, that's basically what everyone does. Like,
mm.
at every level, there's people doing stuff like that. And obviously at the top, there's people just doing stuff like that. And, you can kind of object to the grooming. And obviously there's a lot of reasons to feel that, but he doesn't really see it as a conspiracy. I'm not sure I feel that way. I'm curious what you think.
Well, yeah, I do think that there's a reason that the ages, at least for stuff that we've seen that's confirmed, it's not like it's 3-year-olds, right? It's women that could pass off as being 18, right? So that's that, and that lends towards showing what the operation is in itself. Like that's what Fuentes has said. Like it's it's a blackmail operation because the women are like 16, 17. You get them on camera doing whatever. It's like, we can put this out there, but oh, I thought she was 18, but it doesn't matter. It's so that is clearly the goal of the operation, but um obviously it's still degenerate, but I do think that was probably most of it. Because again, like we really can't get distracted by all the particulars. Like we have to try and hold the position that there is a blackmail operation going on here. Like you said, this is not a satanic pedophile cult. Um, Maybe it is in some sense, um, but yeah, but I also, sorry, I want to go back and touch a little bit on like especially today, but even before. The reason that I tend to get a little confused on this whole thing, and maybe do tend to lean more towards a minimalist interpretation, is at the end of the day, if someone is, first of all, it's going to be rare that someone gets into a position of kind of political influence without kind of having the connections with the scummy people who are already doing it right at this point. But if you really get someone in there who's like I don't know how you feel about James Fishback. I don't know how legitimate he is, but let's say someone like James Fishback
Mm-hmm.
wins tomorrow or something, and he gets in there and he really starts trying to change things. Like, do you not think that they have the power to pull stuff up from 20 years ago, or even if not that, just manufacture evidence? I mean, you have AI now, you have all these technologies, all these different avenues of fabricating things against somebody. I don't know how necessary still the Epstein operation ever was or is now, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. Obviously it happened, but it's just, I kind of have this tension in my understanding of it, where it seems not to be, it was this massive operation, but yet it seems not so necessary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but like I said, I think if you really, with the necessity of it, I think it's just more the practical, because I don't even know if it's, at a certain point, it would seem to me that it's not like he's getting orders from someone like in a yellow envelope saying, do this, like this
Mm,
is my bidding, like, and then like money gets wired into his account, like he's like a Bond supervillain or something, it's like,
sure.
I mean, there might have been that kind of stuff in the beginning, like he makes this connection and then, you go and make this connection and then someone sits you down and then, but at a certain point, you think he kind of just becomes his own player. And so at that point, for his own sake, having all these connections, and I mean, even just in the general, just I think people are just relational. So people are, oh, well, I mean, genuinely, some celebrities are like, well, I just thought he was a cool guy. And, I went out to
Sure.
dinner with him one time. And I do think that there are people like that. I mean, I've met people personally where in like a networking or a professional kind of sphere, and you think they're normal and then something comes out about them and you're like, well, I mean, to the extent that to the level of analysis that a lot of people do online of there's a photo of you with this person, all of a sudden
Dude,
you
wait
might
till you find out
also,
what's coming out about me tomorrow, dude.
yeah,
You're gonna be you're
exactly
you're
right.
cooked. Your whole channel's gone.
Dude, I got cooked. I talked with two people and then within like 3 months afterwards, both of them back in the day, it came out different
Oh,
stuff they'd
actually?
done. It had nothing to do with me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh no,
One of
dude.
them just ended up being a sodomite, and then the other one ended up being, it was worse. The other one was worse than that. But
Man.
yeah, but that was bad. But I mean, it had nothing to do with what I was talking to them about, but just as a coincidence. But that's my point, is that for something like that, those kind of connections. But I do think that eventually he probably just became his own power player, and clearly,
Mm,
especially when you see him talking to people. I mean, you see someone like Elon Musk, who now is basically just throwing around, or at least during the Trump coalition for Trump's recent, presidency, was kind of just throwing around a bag of money and making serious power moves. Someone
Hmm.
like him 20 years ago or 10 years ago or however long ago was kind of on his knees, like, let me come hang out with you, please, And so I
Right.
think to that extent, it's necessary just because that's how he maintained his status and his power. I do think that from a strict, like, back in the day, 10 years ago, someone would have said, oh, he was working with the CIA. Now you would say, well, he's working for Mossad. And I don't know that they necessarily need him for any of those things, but he's still useful at that point because it's like, well, this is the guy with all the connections. You
Mm.
talk to him, he makes a phone call. I don't know. Like,
Well,
I
and I mean,
actually
there's
see why
the
it's
more
there.
people he talks to, then when maybe inevitably stuff does come out, then now any person that he had a connection to, they kind of have a thread on, or a lever
Yeah.
on to pull on, like, oh, you were there, don't make us turn this in, or expose this to the public, how close you were to him,
Mhm.
or I don't know. I do think you're right that there is kind of this social aspect to it that's important, that obviously isn't there with a individual instances of like planting something or manufacturing evidence or something. But I mean, I also do wonder how explicit the blackmail really is. Like, I wonder how often a conversation really happens where it's like, hey, like, you need to do this thing or this thing comes out.
Mhm.
Or if it's just, if we can get the people in the door on the degenerate behavior in a social setting, then they know. Like, we
Mhm.
don't have to tell them. Like,
Mhm.
they already know that, like, we were all in this. Like, it's like a, the old like Skull and Bones, like, initiation stuff. It's like we all were there. We all saw this. Probably it was videoed. And so that there never needs to be that conversation of, hey, don't do this thing, we have this on you. It's this shared degeneracy that kind of keeps everybody quiet.
Yeah, I definitely think that's probably more what it's like. I think it was I think that you probably just get put in that world and then you're like it becomes appealing to you in that way. And especially for a lot of these people, I mean, they're so even on a low level, the type of people involved in like political action and in a lot of these spheres, you see it with the finance bros or with a lot of different people. They're so Machiavellian, maybe
Mm,
not in like an explicit diagnosable way, but just in their behavior. And so a lot of these people are willing to do what it takes to get to the position or whatever. And so I don't think it even takes that much. I totally think you're right that it's like, oh, this is the party to go to meet people. You go to the party. Oh, hey man, come hang out back here. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, the next time this guy asks me to go to dinner and he tells me what to do, I know what happened. So this is what. And I think there's a big advantage in that because then you never have to go and oh, we planted this and oh, there's this plot hole or whatever there is that kind of makes that could make it look bad. You don't even ever have to deal with anything like that. And I think that if the government were to plant anything, it would really have to be something to really get someone taken care of. I mean, even with some whistleblowers like what is it, like Snowden or the other guys, like they get away
mm.
and they can go sit in Russia and go produce Russian TV shows or whatever it is to boost Russian morale or something. Like if they as much as they can disappear people, they kind of don't want to have to do that.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, I mean, as simple a solution as possible is best. So as the less that you have to explicitly acknowledge what's going on, um, probably the better. The more it's kind of just like this more soft pressure kind of campaign um, of just the knowing that we have this shared degenerate behavior,
Hmm.
the better.
Yeah, and I think there's two like I think yeah there's the behavior there, and I think that that's where a lot of people really get caught up is focusing on it just becomes gossip, like focusing on the drama of it, right? And
Mhm.
this is so salacious, and oh my goodness, can you believe this happened? And can you believe that happened? And that's really not the what matters. I mean, it matters as far as any one given person being like taken advantage of or abused, like
Mhm.
especially if there are like whatever amount that like these women were being taken advantage of is individually a bad thing
Of course.
as much as like any other instance of it. but like read a history book. Like people who choose to abuse their power almost always will engage in degenerate behavior like that. You know, there's always going to be some level of that happening, and so it's like that's not anything. I guess there's nothing new under the sun. The real news here is, well, who are these people connected to? And then you see a lot of it like nowadays is a lot of the, I think Steve Bannon's an interesting example because he was kind of this dark horse, dark MAGA, like the leader of the real right wing half of MAGA. And it's like, well, he was kind of almost to a lot of people, I think, like the maverick that could kind of get through the Trump, because, you know, Trump is basically the right wing in America, and Bannon was kind of like this guy who could maybe push them in that direction or in a more right wing direction. And all of a sudden he's connected to this. And so there's an advantage from a more mainstream perspective, if you think about it, if you're on the mainstream right, to push those attacks against him. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve those. I'm not making a statement on a value statement there. I'm just saying from a practical, how do you play the game perspective, there's a lot of that. Same thing in a lot of these different places, these different factions throwing, you know, these different people who are involved throwing these accusations. And who was it? I think it was, oh, I forgot. Go ahead.
No, I don't know if I have anything to add to that. I tend to look more. I'm studying philosophy, so I tend to see things more, maybe in philosophically or spiritually or more universally. So I try to think like, what is the story? And so I do have a hard time seeing any of this outside of the lens of us as Catholics. Like, this is actually, Catholicism came up in the files multiple times, never in a positive light, of course. But I do kind of see this through the kind of synagogue versus the church lens a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you even see, like, if you think about like the Passion of Christ, you see the Jewish Sanhedrin kind of working with Rome to take down Christ. And now you see the new synagogue kind of working with the new Rome, America, infiltrating it, working with it, using its power to take down the body of Christ in the modern world. So I think there's something really interesting there that, again, you're also not going to get in those particulars. Nobody's talking about this sort of stuff. Even prominent Catholics aren't really talking about that. Frankly, Fuentes isn't talking about it. Candace Owens isn't talking. None of these like prominent people that you're seeing kind of in the mainstream, they don't want to talk about this spiritual story. But that is how we have to see history, especially as Catholics. Like, we, you know, you look at like the rise and fall of Christendom. Like, there's a spiritual story, and the only way that you can really understand history is to take a step back and look at the full spiritual story being told. And I don't know if you want to go more in that direction, but that's just kind of how I see things. And I see it, frankly, eschatologically in a lot of ways. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say.
I definitely see where you're coming from. I do think that there's like a takeaway. I mean, I can see the reason why, especially Nick Fuentes doesn't talk about that, just because I think he really tries to keep his analysis kind of grounded in.
Sure, practically, it wouldn't really make sense for what.
And I think that, but I think that's just more of not even like that he wouldn't be interested. Like, I'm sure maybe if you sat him down, he'd be willing to have that conversation. But I just think his product, like, you know, in the same way that like there might be some Catholic dude who like sells sandwiches and he's like, while I'm selling sandwiches, this is just a sandwich shop. Like, he's like, you know, this is a geopolitics show as long as I'm doing the geopolitics show. So, but I do think that definitely exists, the kind of battle, like what is it? I like the way Anthony from Avoiding Babylon says it. He says that the enmity between the older and the younger brother, that's like his favorite way to say it. And I think that that's a really good explanation. And especially when you do see there is a specific, I mean, there is a country that exists that is a blood and soil ethnic nationalist country of Israel. And as far as to whatever extent they have, you know, to whatever extent they don't technically have a national religion of Judaism, they have a national religion of Judaism, and their interests are naturally aligned with the religious kind of to some extent the religious goals of the people who hold those beliefs. And so I think that, and especially like you were saying, there's this atheism, this kind of the transhumanist push for to
Mhm.
whatever extent that exists inside of
Well,
all
and
of these
there's
too.
a messianism in that too
Yes.
that seems to be playing right into the Jewish rejection of like the incarnate Christ, God incarnate of the church is already here, that God has
Mhm.
already come in the flesh, and so they're looking for this other sort of Messiah that'll come in a different way that would look more like a Messiah to them, and all of those different avenues that we've been talking about all seem like they will at some point converge on that for the Jewish people.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, you brought up Anthony from Avoiding Babylon. He talks about this sort of stuff all the time. I have a really hard time seeing anything that happens politically, geopolitically, not through that lens, because it seems like things are just converging at such a rate
Mhm.
now that we have not seen in all of history, and the stakes are so high, literally nuclear. That the technology is so advanced, that it just seems, I don't know, it seems inevitable that something is going to happen at some point. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I don't know. You just have all these very interesting threads that seem to be coming together and combining. Like it really is shocking that all the different industries that are involved in the Epstein files. It almost seems to be like a nexus of like this anti-Christic agenda.
Mhm. Well, I think you can see too from the like the nexus or whatever you want to call it, that it kind of comes out in all these directions. And in a lot of ways, like these tendrils or whatever they are, they kind of are pitching like the in Israel, like the Zionist myth that exists is naturally kind of antichrist, and that's their kind of. But it's this religious. It is literally in a kind of fueling religious myth that pushes forward this political reality.
Mm,
In the biohacking transhumanist sphere, the Peter Thiel, we need to bring about the Antichrist to do this and to do that, and that is. But that's what that's the same thing. It's a religious myth that is the myth that basically justifies this same movement, and you see it in all these different directions. And so there's kind of these religious yarns being woven together. I mean, it
mm,
exists obviously in amongst all of the evangelicals, that this is the, that we are stewarding the people of God, and basically, like we're basically, it's almost like they're like we're building Noah's Ark again, in the middle of the desert, and that's kind of this, and a lot there's all this typological. But the funny thing is that, I mean, as much as there is to as much as there is to analyze there, from a practical perspective as well, it's literally the mythological argument as much as like Rome is the continuation of Troy, like from, Aeneas leaving Troy, like, and that is the mythological foundation for why Rome exists and why they are able to go and do everything that they want to do.
mm,
To the same in the same way that all of these mythological arguments, and a lot of them are either atheistic or agnostic or Jewish or evangelical or whatever they are, they don't line up with what you and I think is the truth, which is the
mm.
Catholic faith. And so it is
Right.
interesting that the practical, because, and that's one thing that a lot of foolish Catholics, I think, or a lot of people who are involved in these type of circles who call themselves Catholic, whether or not they technically count or not, they might kind of buy into these ideas that are not actually Catholic, these kind of mythologies that are woven. And I do
Mm.
think that there is definitely an interesting thread running consistently through all of this.
Yeah, and I would agree. Obviously, we don't agree with these agendas, but it does seem like all these agendas are kind of they seem to. It seems like they will very easily find their actuality in the prophecies of Revelation. It
Hmm.
seems like that, like, so in that sense, I see them all within God's providence as congruent with God's providence, but not congruent with what I would do.
Hmm.
But there's almost a peace that comes with realizing the profundity and like massive um kind of stretch of God's providence that that we really can't touch. So in some sense, it's very disappointing and terrifying to learn about the way that the world works and that it's run by these elites. But in another sense, you're like, well, this is exactly what we were told would happen. Like with Christendom falling, of course the world's gonna fall into degeneracy. And so I don't know. I don't know if that thought arc there made sense, but
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it's hard to like not doom. It's kind of weird because especially I think the worst thing you could do is sit there and be scared that there's like some evil Satanist who's gonna like steal your baby out of the crib or something. Like kind of
sure.
this, like, if you were to buy into something dumb like that, like there's really no advantage there. But I do think to some extent kind of acknowledging how much it's kind of just baked into the pie
Mm,
currently, and you can kind of if you are Christian or Catholic, it does kind of allow you to take your hands off the wheel a little bit and kind of just
yes.
trust what's happening. And I think that what it also kind of seeing the reality, it kind of, this is something I've thought about a lot. It's like you basically have to decide, like, am I going to do exactly what it takes for me to make a positive impact, like in this world, or to try to fight in this battle?
Right.
And if you're not going to do whatever, like, I mean, we're talking like super specifically, like go and get a law degree and go and like start working somewhere and never post anything publicly under your name, and like try to go like whatever these hyper specific things you could do are. Like, if
Mm,
you're not going to go do that, then just like enjoy your life and go be like a virtuous person, like
sure.
just
Sure.
wash your hands of it and just be like, I can't do anything about this. And like, I'm just going to wash my hands. And like, if there's ever a moment for me to exercise like a positive Christian civic virtue, then I can do that. But as a general thing, it's like you kind of have to. It's important that those who matter see what's the truth is and kind of make that decision.
Mm,
And I think that's why it's important to figure out what the truth is. But like most people, like the average person who hears about this is going to end up on the, you know, an evil Jew is going to steal my baby out of the cradle or something
sure.
type of, I don't know, idiocy, I guess. Kind of the
Sure.
ridiculous Alex Jones, like Candace Owens type, just spiraling, coming up with new theories, just like for entertainment, like conspiracy-tainment.
Right. Yeah, I think I like what you said, that honestly, like in this sphere, neither one of us have that much influence, but I think I'll speak for myself that we can kind of get this puffed up sense that like what we're doing, because it's public facing and because it's kind of we take our faith seriously, that like we're really making this impact or like doing something special. But what we're doing is nothing compared to just like being a good father or being a good husband, or um, you know going to mass multiple times a week, and developing that relationship with our Lord. And so yes, very much so, like you don't have to go out there and take down the satanic pedophile Kabbalah.
Mm-hmm.
You can just be a virtuous person. And honestly, that's as difficult as anything these days
Mm-hmm.
in the culture we live in. It's truly like just the amount of degeneracy pushed at every level of the culture. It truly is difficult just to be a virtuous person,
Mm-hmm.
just to like wrangle in all the chaos and just have peace and a relationship with God. Like it's truly difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I don't have any. I'm not in a position of authority to tell anyone how to do that outside of become Catholic, I guess.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure about that one part, but yeah, definitely. I think that, and I mean, I think it's fine. Like whatever, if your hobby is politics and you just like doing it for fun and you don't want to do anything, like it's a perfectly fine hobby to have. And there's ways to get involved locally and like to actually make positive change and build networks and all that kind of stuff. And all that's fine. But I'm not trying to say don't do that kind of stuff. But I just mean from this perspective, like the average person isn't benefiting from learning about this. I mean, the average person isn't benefiting by learning about anything, just kind of as a rule. But
100%.
so I do think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can move on to another topic if you want. I'm curious if you feel there's anything else to hit with this specific topic. I don't know how you feel.
I don't know. I do find it I don't know why they released them.
Hmm.
You know, is there is it just that there are kind of battling elites, battling factions within the elites, and one, you know, wants the truth out? It could be as simple as that, but um, maybe a more interesting angle uh, is just humiliation ritual. You know, getting it out there, everybody reading it, reading about how they all think we're goyim, that we're like, but nobody's going to be able to do anything about it, and there's no charges expected for anybody. Um, that seems to have been kind of the whole political kayfabe, political theater kind of thing for a long time now. It's been like, yeah, you guys can all talk about it, but nothing's going to happen. Like you guys
Hmm.
can, it's almost become, you know, you used to have this like slop entertainment, like, I don't know, not to hate on people's favorite TV shows, but like Friends and stuff like these, just like slop entertainment. Now it's politics has become the slop entertainment, so
Yeah.
that we're all just distracted again, kind of in those particulars, and we're finding so much, like we get like dopamine spikes from the next crazy horrible thing that you hear in the news. Like
Mhm.
it's kind of again hard to be virtuous in this environment.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I think what I'm curious about is to what extent, like, I mean, I would imagine if, because I mean, there was clearly a three, or not a 360, because that'd be in the same direction, a 180 at some point between release it and then the initial 180. I guess it did become a 360. The initial 180 of nothing and the black binders and all that kind of stuff,
True.
which
True.
basically, I mean, that's what kind of started a lot of the real parts of the right basically kind of separating from the institution, and that's what really kind of started this split between the coalition that Trump had built to get elected, because he really, to kind of win that, he really invited over a lot of random groups, you know, and kind of was handing out bones to different people. And I
True.
think that's where you saw kind of the real right mixed with kind of the schizos kind of decide like this is unacceptable. And then and then from like a lot of his, I think his real base, which is probably not even like Republicans anymore, but more just Trump people, stuck with him no matter what, and will find a way to excuse it. And I'm trying to think. I feel like a lot of the captive dreamers and that kind of people, I feel like they had covered for a lot of that kind of stuff, you know, and so and then now they're taking it and they're putting it out there. And it's definitely, I mean, what happened to like what's happening to Keir Starmer in the UK, where they're basically saying, is he going to be forced to resign? Are they going to call an election? Like, what's going to happen? And this is like a catalyst. It's literally like, this is undoubtedly in the UK a catalyst that's going to lead to something. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. That's not going to happen in the United States. Like, he's president regardless of what's going to happen. And there's probably too many prominent Democrats caught up in it for them to put him through a third or fourth impeachment. And so I think that I'm curious to what extent maybe they were trying to get ahead of the drama and they release it, try to control it. And then what does this mean like for JD Vance and
Hmm.
his, because I think that his connection to the little tech, like transhumanist sphere, is obviously very prominent, you know,
Yes.
his, and so are they trying to get all of that out of the way and everyone forgets about it, and then when it's his time to, you know, and to me it doesn't even seem that he's necessarily, I mean, he's obviously the front runner coming up, but he's not confirmed as Trump's successor like 100%.
Mm.
So I don't have an answer for that. I'm very curious what's going on there. I definitely have a lot of questions. I think I have friends who might have strong opinions. I would be curious to ask Basil what he thinks about the little tech connections and JD Vance and all the connections to the Epstein stuff. I'm not sure. I think he did an Epstein episode last week. But yeah, I'm kind of curious about that. I don't know if you've thought about that at all.
Yeah. I don't know, because it seems like honestly a lot of the kind of slop right they were kind of ready to swallow all the little tech stuff, kind of no problem. So I feel like if they had just kind of kept the files in the corner, and maybe done more of the, you know, soft releases where they release what, and that's the other thing too, like they can release whatever they want, like we're not going to
Yeah.
know. We're not going to know if they left stuff out. So they could have only released what's not incriminating for the people that they still could have done that, by the way. That still could have been what happened. They maybe didn't release them all. I thought there was never going to be another dump, to be honest with you. I thought if there really was anything that was going to make powerful people look bad, that it was just they got rid of it. It's the same thing I think for a lot of the old like conspiracies, like something like JFK. Like people always wanting the JFK files to release. I'm like, if JFK is what you think it is, I'm not sure that those files actually still exist. And because if I was the CIA and I didn't have, let's say Christian morals, and I was purely looking at it from an efficiency standpoint of being an intelligence agency, I'm just going to get rid of the files. I'm never going to save them in the first place. Why would I save the files that incriminate my organization?
Yeah.
So I was shocked that they came out at all. I'm still shocked that they came out. It really makes me wonder what the power play that's happening in the factions really is. I don't know. And again, it really does just seem like it's kind of this meat for us to all kind of chew on. And I don't know. It just seems so like slop to a lot of it to me. And like we talked about, a lot of like the biggest people talking about it really just have the sloppiest takes on it.
Yeah. Well, you see from the, like, I think, what's his name? Jake Shields is a good example of, he was going really hard, anti-Israel, anti-Jew, going crazy about all this kind of stuff. And then he started talking about, like, he put out a poll on his X, did they actually eat babies or something like that? And it was like 80% in favor, yes, they actually ate babies, and 20% not in favor if they ate babies. I don't know how many people voted, but it's obviously thousands or tens of thousands of people are voting in this poll. And it's like, exactly, it's, if there is a real, if and because there are real critiques to be made, all of these thousands of people are now sitting there talking about eating babies and stuff. Like I'm saying, like, they're going to snatch my baby out of the crib and eat my baby and harvest my baby for adrenochrome and live forever. And,
people are allergic to talking about like practical applications of politics. Like they always want to go for the craziest thing here or there. Like, And I think frankly, that is what, NJF has been right on the money on, is trying to stay practical, and really trying to focus on, what is really happening here. Like, what is the end of the Epstein operation? What was it for? What is the, because it wasn't for eating babies.
Yeah.
That's not the primary goal.
Yeah.
And that's obvious.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's pretty ridiculous. And the issue is that, I mean, I guess it's an issue. It's kind of not an issue. It's like a societal health issue when there's a bunch of people being obsessed with that kind of stuff. Because it's just like, in the same way that everyone, like you had kind of said, everyone's shifting from, I would rather everyone be obsessed with Friends and everyone be watching Candace Owens talking about whether or not, like, the first lady of France has a penis, And in the same way, I would rather everyone be obsessed with The Office and Friends than be obsessed with 80% of people thinking that Jeffrey Epstein and all of them ate babies. Like, that's from a societal perspective, that's very unhealthy.
And it blackpills people on ever wanting to do anything practical in politics.
Yeah.
Right. So people just blackpill that. They're like, oh my God, they're eating babies. Like, do we really even, is the system worth saving? Like, don't we just let it go? Like,
yeah, it turns people into, it makes them blackpill, and it turns them into accelerationists or, or libertarians. Oh, this is something you had in your notes. Maybe we should talk about this. Oh, everyone in charge, all the elites are evil. They're all evil Satanists, and everyone in charge is evil. And, I was arguing with someone yesterday. All power is always going to corrupt you. There's no way to, properly hold power. And so it's just all of these kind of ridiculous notions. And I don't want to sit here and like melt down over it, because like the hoi polloi who are going to sit there and think, who care and are going to obsess over Jeffrey Epstein eating or not eating a baby, like aren't serious people.
Sure.
But like, there are certainly people who could have become serious. Like, there probably is some 14-year-old who could have become a normal, well-adjusted person who like falls down some deep, random schizo Candace Owens rabbit hole and wastes a bunch of time, or, gets obsessed with something stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the note you were talking about is I said something like, oligarchy doesn't necessarily have to be evil. Like, it's not evil
Yeah.
as such. If the elites hadn't come to their positions by making connections with Jeffrey Epstein, like, we would have a different elite class and things would go differently.
Mhm.
People, there's this fallacy. People see how degenerate the people that run us are, and they just assume people that run people are degenerate, and that's just
Mhm.
a total fallacy. And of course, there's a kind of distortion of mostly European history that that's kind of drilled into our brains in public schools, that um, everybody who ever has been in power has been bad,
Mhm.
and that they've been bad because they've been in power. And so that's another way to blackpill everybody. And then the people who know that that's not true, who are the ones that have the power, who are the ones that are pushing those agendas. In fact, Ghislaine Maxwell's father owned McGraw-Hill Publishing Company. So writing the textbooks for our public schools, telling us that our patronage in Europe and that our ancestors in Christendom were evil for being kings, or for ruling, or for having an iron fist of the law and morals.
Mhm.
And so everybody kind of just, they don't even know how to break out of that prison, because they don't even know it's a prison that they're in, of
Yeah.
thought.
Mhm.
But they start them young. It's
Mhm.
crazy, like, the levels to this, to the trying to blackpill the goyim. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. I mean,
Mhm.
if we are all blackpilled, none of us will want to do anything.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's literally just their own language. So you can't even in the Epstein specific case, like, you can't even get mad. That's literally just using his language to describe
Yeah.
his thoughts, you know? But yeah, I agree, especially and I think that's where you get this kind of ridiculous idea. Everyone always complains about the right wing and how there's this idea that, like, the left uses power, like, the left views power basically as like a bat to beat their opponent with, or a club to club their opponent with. And it's like the right wing views power as corrupting and evil, and like it's virtuous to basically just like sit there and fall on your own sword for no reason, or it's virtuous to like give someone a weapon to abuse you with. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the misreading of what is it, like turning the other cheek. It's like a misreading of all of that kind of stuff.
100%.
And then there's also here, wait, give me 1 second. I'm gonna turn off my notifications really quick. But there's that. I think that what did I want to say? Oh, Tim Gordon might get mad that you said oligarchy instead of aristocracy. He'd probably come to to term police us. But yeah, definitely there is, like, as much as any system exists, like, the system's virtue is determined by whether or not it does good things or bad things. It's
Mhm.
like a machine that is just made out of pieces of metal is not an inherently immoral machine unless the machine does bad things. And so it's like a meat grinder that grinds up dead animals is good, and if you grind up live people with it, it's like a bad thing. But it's just metal parts either way. And so it's like, yeah, our system is bad because it does bad things and it hurts people, and it does stuff like that, like, not because. And I think that that's important, because it's important that the right, meaning the correct people on the right, or the correct types of Catholics and Christians, realize that the only way you get out of this is by wielding the power yourself, and that you
Mhm.
can't be afraid of it. You have to go
Yes.
and go and fight for it, and go for it, and keep the hoi polloi away from it, and they don't need to care, and they can just live happy, virtuous lives. But the people that do need to hear it need to realize that, and not get trapped in this kind of libertarian mindset.
Yeah, it's kind of baked into the American cake. That this idea that maybe it wasn't from the very beginning, you could argue, but this whole religious freedom idea, I think, the freedom of religion idea, kind of seeps its way out of religion and into everything, where it's like, it's just this, oh, like, I can't assert my will, or like, I can't assert,
Mhm.
even if your will is good, like, oh, it's the non-aggression principle of
Yeah.
libertarianism. It's this, it's really baked into both sides of modern liberal politics. And it's, I mean, it's going to end up where no Christians have any power. Everybody but the Christians have wielded all the power, and then you're definitely not going to have the Christian values that you want. Like, it's it's sad, because we think we're being virtuous by living that way, but we're going to end up being overrun by Amish and Muslims,
Mhm.
because that is not how they see the world. Like, they see the world the way that you and I are saying that we should.
Mhm.
They see it through an identitarian lens. They see it through, um, just practical lens.
Mhm.
But we're so worried about not offending and not aggressing, whatever that means. It's goofy.
Yeah, well, and I think that there's kind of just a practical lens from a. It's difficult in America to say anything about like identitarianism in any, even in like a religious way, like a Catholic identitarianism. Like when you read history, especially in Europe, like across the mid-century, a lot of the battles are basically between like the Catholic Party and like the Fascist Party, or the Catholic Party and the Communist Party and the Fascist Party, or the Catholic
Mm,
Party and the Communist Party, or whatever it is. And so it's like there is in that way, and they wouldn't have had like identitarianism because they were mostly homogenous countries. You would have seen it in somewhere like Belgium, like where in the mid-century they had kind of this fight between like Flemings and Wallonians, and they're both Catholic, and what are the dynamics here? And then they kind of, because they're all Catholic, they kind of devolve, and then it becomes this nationalist dispute. And I mean, so there are a lot of these things that exist, but you see the kind of the one consistent line is that they're not afraid to take the power and to use it,
mm,
and that's a realistic thing. And this is something that there's this liberal, kind of non-aggression libertarian principle you were talking about, where it's the idea of like, if I don't want someone to do this to me, then I can't do this to them. And it's like, no, actually, like there are some things that are okay for good guys to do, and there are some things that are not okay for bad guys to do. And it's like,
yep.
and good guys should be in charge and should wield power, and bad guys shouldn't be in charge and shouldn't wield power.
Yeah. 100%.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I have anything to add on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds kind of childish, but it's like I only say it in that way because some people are so blue pilled into thinking that like that the solution is to like give everyone a vote, and like cooler heads will prevail. And it's one of the things I hate the most is there's like, you hear it in college campuses. They'll talk about like in 101 classes, they'll be like, yeah, well, when you add 20 people to a group, they're not 20 times smarter than one person, they're 200 times smarter, and together through democracy we have that, the 3 million fold increase. And it's like,
Yeah.
no,
What
it's
if they're
just a bunch.
dumb? They're
Yeah,
200 times dumber. Like, what are you
yeah,
talking about?
exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I've heard that idiotic stuff, like, and so it's just like, it literally is that important to tell people that, like, no, literally vote for good guys. You don't vote, or you put your power behind good guys and not behind bad guys. And good guys should do all the good things they can, and you should stop bad guys from doing all the bad things. And it's like, you have to talk that simply because people don't get it, especially
Right.
in
Yeah.
America.
Right. It's almost elementary. It's like, if the good guys don't wield the power is still there to wield. So bad
Mhm.
guys will wield it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Like,
I mean, it's
it's
literally,
elementary.
it's yeah, it's like a law. It's elementary. It's a law of. It's like a law of. It's a law of politics in the way that gravity exists, like power exists, and somebody by definition has to wield the power. So who do you want it to be? Like, choose.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I hate saying that because I feel like it makes me sound dumb saying that. Like if some like smart person heard me say that, they're like, oh, this guy's sitting here like saying these obvious things and he thinks he's smart. And it's like, it's not even that I think I'm smart. It's just like that I speak with people who I feel like that's the level I have to talk to them to get to get a conversation to progress.
Right. Well, I mean, it just goes back to what we talked about public education. I mean, I mean, it is brainwashing.
Mm-hmm.
It is intentionally created. I've heard people talk about this. I haven't actually researched it, but I know it's based on the Prussian education system that was literally just meant to make obedient kind of cog workers in the machine. That's why they have the bell. It's like training people to work in a factory. It's really is a brainwashing operation to kind of form people into this worldview where it is almost impossible to break them out. It's Plato's cave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think there is somewhat of a more traditional, like I think that schools were once used in like a positive way. And I mean,
I would
I think
agree.
especially because, I mean, even if you just see like reading lists and stuff, and it's like, I mean, objectively smarter people used to be the ones to go to school. And so it's like, there are advantages, especially like in universities and stuff, that there was a lot more progress being made. I was listening to someone, and I'm going to write an essay on this and then eventually turn it into a video, but he was talking about how if you read JFK's Harvard admissions essay, it's like, why do you want to go to Harvard? Because Harvard will get me where I want to go. Okay, where do you want to go? And it's like, I want to do something positive. And it's like, okay, come into Harvard, young man. And
That's
it's
it.
like, if you
Wow.
read it, it's like, I mean, I'm somewhat hyperbolizing, but
Of
it's
course.
extremely simple. And
Wow.
so it's
I
like,
thought you were going to say it was like lavish and incredible.
oh no, it's very unimpressive. But
Wow.
the interesting thing is that the guy who I was listening to, he had said, this is interesting because it's basically, this is a more noble understanding of education, that he's basically just saying like, I want to go to Harvard because you're going to turn me into the type of man who goes to Harvard, and I want to be that
Mm.
type of man, right?
Sure. Well, and it's just like we were talking about with oligarchy. Oligarchy is not bad as such. Education
Yeah.
is not bad as such. When the goal of education is to brainwash someone, it's worse than no education.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so if you are turning people into, if you are literally intentionally perverting and distorting their worldview to where they will never be able to practically apply their thinking in the real world in a way that will matter, that will change the world in a positive way, like you're imprisoning people in their mind, and honestly, that's one of the most evil things I can imagine, because our intellect is how we kind of form our understanding of the world, our identity in the world, it's how we come to the truth. And I think this is also why you see so many people not coming to the truth. Now that people have started to realize kind of that this system is at play in the way that it is, you are seeing a kind of a revival of faith. But for decades now, it has been the case that they pretty successfully, like most people, even nominal Christians, they had no idea. They swallowed whatever was given to them. And that's kind of what I mean about education. It forms your brain to be receptive to like the sloppiest of slop.
Yeah. I'm going to put up, this is from your channel. Someone who's watching from your channel posted this in the chat. So I'll put this question up here. I think this is actually a really good question. JJ Cruz says, or J.I. Cruz says, I hear both people on the far left and right make the claim that public education institutions are industrial brainwashing pipelines, but then both sides disagree on exactly how people are being brainwashed. How do you square that circle? You want to say that? Or
I think both sides are actually just liberalism. I think that's the answer, because I think, like I said, I kind of see things from a more universal historical lens. Like I see the rise and fall of Christendom, and I see us on this fallen side of it, and so I see now the anti-Christic agenda trying to make when Christendom was shining in its glory, make it look as evil as possible. So, monarchy is bad as such. Imposing religion is bad. All these things that were glorious in the days of Christendom are now the biggest evils politically in our current society. But I think both sides, for the most part, especially of the mainstream, are going to agree with that. They're going to agree with what the public education is saying in that sense. Now, there are other little particulars here and there where the left is going to be like, oh, they shouldn't do that, or the right is going to be like, oh, they shouldn't do that. But the left and the right are both just liberalism.
yeah, I think that when you're saying the people critiquing like the current education system, which I think was kind of his question, I do think that the reason is because they're objectively like the school at least does get people, up until more recently, to like a basic level of competence. And then, but there also are just objectively like so many issues. And so I do think that there are people of good, I think there can be like good faith liberals, meaning like someone who is a mainstream Democrat or whatever, who I would say like from a practical perspective, there's serious moral issues like in a lot of the things they think. I guess I could say the same thing with someone who's a mainstream Republican, like, but they both just see objective issues that do exist,
Sure.
Kids don't have, X, Y, and Z. They're not ready for this or that coming out of college, and they're not getting this or that. And, but then the issue is that they both diagnose it negatively, and they both kind of get it wrong too. You see there's like this colorblind meritocracy argument from the right a lot of the times, which is wrong and dumb. And it's like, some people shouldn't go to school. Some people, I mean, at least beyond a certain point. And you see from the left, there's this kind of, oh, well, all hierarchy's evil. So since these people aren't succeeding, then clearly there's a hierarchy kind of holding them down, and school is naturally hierarchical. So of course the people not succeeding. And so you see that they're both coming from incorrect angles, looking at a real problem that exists. And so I think that's why they can both make good faith claims. Like they're both honestly trying to diagnose an issue, but since they're both of them have incorrect frameworks, they both honestly misdiagnose the problem.
Right. No, that's a
Yeah,
a great way to put it. That's kind of what I was trying to get at, but I think you
Yeah.
I think you worded it very well.
Yeah. And so that's why it's like there is a real good type of education that exists. And it's like, it's just not, I mean, there are educational institutions that are good that exist right now, but it's like they are not like the predominant mainstream, that the average person is not getting a positive education in that way.
Sure.
So I think that would
I'm
be kind of an explanation.
I'm not against school as I'm going to a university right now, a Catholic university. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If anyone else wants to throw in any questions, we're just past an hour. I normally don't go past an hour and a half, so we can keep talking. We can end it now. If anyone wants to throw it in, now's the time. We have a couple people in the chat right now. I'll go through comments real quick. Catcan says the new files are insane, pure horror. Definitely, there's some sketchy stuff in there. There's one from the one of the guys from the UK. Oh, I'm forgetting who he is. I think it might have been the Mandelson guy, or it's someone else. And it's him just like in the photos, like in his underwear. Like people, there's a lot of random people. Well, like one guy in his underwear, another guy like with his shirt in his underwear and stuff like that. And it's just like, man, what are you doing? Like,
that's crazy.
I mean, like guys do dumb, funny stuff. You go on a camping trip and you go and do dumb stuff. You might walk around in your underwear, but you're like, I'm not 40 and at a party. Like I wouldn't be 40 and at a party.
Right. I'm not going to go hang out with billionaires
frat.
running the world and then get in my underwear.
Yeah,
That's
like you
crazy.
don't behave like it's a frat. Like frat people might behave that way in a frat house or something, but it's like this isn't a frat house. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
Just a fella says hello, and then he complains that I monetize my stream.
Dang, bro, the grift.
Dude, I'm a grifter, yeah. Hello to Preconsular Radio, and then this guy threw a low-key jab at you and said he thought I had Pearl Davis on for a second. No,
that's
he just has
crazy, bro.
It's
crazy. Hey, is Preconsular Radio TLM Ryan?
Yeah. That's TLM Ryan. Yeah, he's a good guy. I was on with him last week. We were talking about because I was the first person after Rob and Anthony to have him on to. I think he either started his channel like the day before I talked with him, or he did it immediately afterwards. And so he's been doing really well. He actually, in like 4 months, passed me for what I was doing for like a year. Everyone really likes hearing his stuff. So
dang, man.
Yeah, he's got good stuff. Someone said,
bro, that Pearl Davis comment is going to haunt my nightmares tonight. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. You'll never see me on the internet ever again after that.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. That's funny. Yeah, there's that.
I don't know if I have anything else big to touch on. Something that did come out more on the particular side though. I think earlier today or maybe yesterday was that it was kind of confirmed that the cell footage was deleted. I mean, we knew that was going to happen, but I mean, we knew that did happen, but it is kind of interesting to see that, I guess, vindicated. Also, there was the fact that they had an official announcement of his death ready to go a day before he died in his cell. That was pretty wild. So again, stuff we kind of knew, but to be vindicated on is kind of wild.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that one of the things I found interesting, did you see they released the footage of Ghislaine walking around in her cell, like pacing back and forth, laying down, just like it was like a time lapse of her just sitting in her cell.
I did not see that.
I think it is interesting if they needed to eliminate him, you would think that she would be privy to everything he's privy to. Maybe she was just more cooperational, and that's why she's still around. But I don't know. It's kind of weird, that she's still, nothing's happened to her. And it's
that does kind of play into the theory that she's the one that she's the puppet master and Epstein was more of the puppet. So she's maybe got more of the connections. I've heard people kind of have that theory that, because her father was explicitly working with, intelligence agencies. So maybe she was the one that kind of had those connections and maybe found Epstein as someone that would kind of be able to be a socialite for her while she sat more in the shadows. I'm not saying that's what I think is necessarily happening, but yeah, it's just a theory.
Yeah, that is interesting. I don't really know what's going on there, but she's in a lot of, directly in a lot of the messages and stuff, and obviously she'd appeared with him a lot publicly and stuff too. So it is really weird. It's
It
kind of
is.
curious, and it has taken a lot of the heat off of her too. I feel like the
Yeah,
files coming out. You don't
it's
hear
true.
people like when he was dead and she was the one who was alive. A lot of it was kind of connecting her to stuff, explaining it. It's almost like people kind of moved on from Epstein and were kind of focusing on her. And a lot of it's this. I mean, obviously she's still indicted and like and connected and all that kind of stuff, and literally in jail. And so it's like, she's still facing repercussions. But from at least from the conversation, a lot of it is shifted away from her, which is interesting as well. I'm curious what happens there.
Yeah, I do think it's easier to kind of vilify and like paint a villain out of a man,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
make him like a kind of pop culture villain.
Mhm.
Um, if that is, I don't know, not that they are, turning him into a villain, but I think just the popular reaction is going to tend towards focusing on the man,
Yeah, that makes sense.
probably just as a natural tendency.
Yeah, because women aren't going to want to demonize women, and then men are going to kind of cover for them, and so it's like, and then women are happy kind of punching up at men, and men are happy to attack men because then they can't be called anything for it. So it kind of, yeah, I guess there's natural incentives going
It's
that
also
way.
just hard for us to like imagine that a woman would do
Yeah,
those evils. Like it really is. Like we, especially us who have good women in our lives, like we just see women as women,
yeah,
feminine and good natured and loving and caring and empathetic and not psychopathic. So it's
yeah.
that it's my wife and I have our first kid coming next month, and we've talked about how it's a daughter, but we've talked about how like the differences of like planning towards like raising a boy and then raising a girl, and like there's a lot more margin of error for a boy.
Hmm.
I feel like
Hmm.
it can be much more dangerous if you get it wrong, because the man can impose his bad will in a manner that most women cannot.
Hmm.
And so like obviously you have to get it right with every child, right? You have to do everything you can to get it right, but you really have to get it right with guys,
Yeah.
because like they really can become turn into a monster that I feel like is more rare for a woman.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I think that makes sense. All right. Well, I think that's
Is,
everything for me. If you're good with that, unless you have anything else you wanna
is he
say.
asking if the gaming chair brand is, or is he just asking if the
I think
gaming
he's
chair is
just
optimal?
I think he's just shooting the shit, messing around.
No, probably not. It's honestly not even that comfortable. I got it on Amazon years ago, so no, it's not optimal. Not a recommendation. Not a
The goat
sponsor.
the goat chair are those like I hate them because they're so ugly, but those like those synthetic mesh ones, like the Aeron chairs and stuff with all
Mm,
the you get so much airflow and everything. They
they're
give you
so
the good
comfy.
lumbar support. They're
100%.
horribly ugly. If you're an aesthetics maxer, they're a
Well,
terrible
this is
option.
ugly too, dude. I'm
Yeah.
clearly not an aesthetics, but like the curtains I've got going on, like it's atrocious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this does have the little back pillow thing, so that's nice. But
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you. It was nice talking with Alex. I hope you guys liked it. Go over to his channel. I have it connected in the title, so you guys can just click on that and go over and subscribe to him. And then thank you everyone from his channel. Feel free to subscribe. I have a Substack and a another YouTube that's about men's fashion if you're interested in that. And the Substack's more about that kind of stuff too. And is there anything else that you have that people can subscribe to or look at?
you can just go to alexpoe.com. It's got all my links there. You can subscribe to my channel. I'm actually interviewing Dr. E. Michael Jones tomorrow, so tune in for that. Let's hope I don't get kicked off of the internet.
All
So
right. Well, that's
we'll see how
exciting.
it
All
goes.
right. So everyone go check out his E. Michael Jones interview coming out tomorrow. And I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
All right.
Don't forget to
Thanks,
like and
guys.
subscribe. And now have a good night.